aficionado and has become very good over the years and likes to share. So here we go.
I'm hoping everybody can hear me. Anybody, can you hear me at the back? Because I hate microphones. You're good? Okay. So yes, I'm Lee Ann. You've probably seen me recently on the board. I joined last summer. You've seen me possibly for those that go out to the wildlife drive. I'm one of the people that stands there in the really fashionable orange vests and says hello to everybody, which is really where I got involved and got to know Deborah and many of the other people on the board.
I'll let you push them forward and I'll be right back.
Can we turn down the lights to see the slides better?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Much better. Okay. So my love, I've always enjoyed photography. Like so many, I'm mom, grown children, grandchildren. I would do family pictures. Like so many people, you go from film into digital, and at that point, you go to point and shoot because that was the latest, greatest thing. And then when my daughter was born, my husband bought me a new film camera. We were using that, so I've been invested in it for a while. Never really learned the technical side. And then probably about 10 years ago, he bought me my first digital SLR. And I did, again, family events, various things. We moved to Florida just over 8 years ago, or almost 8 years ago. And lo and behold, look at all these birds. And one of our favorite pastimes was going out and driving and seeing places. And it's all his fault. He bought me my first big lens because I was out trying to take pictures of birds with, my little, 100 millimeter lens, and it wasn't working, or 200 millimeter. And then, so really, what I try to do, I am going to have a caveat. I am not the best photographer that we have here in Orange County or on the Audubon websites. I am not the most technical photographer that we have. But I love what we do, and I think it's very important to be able to connect, photography with everybody, whether it be on your phone, a all-in-one Zoom, great equipment. It's really there for you. There is so much information out there on all of the technical side of it that everybody can go in and, you can go and learn. We have workshops. We had a great one at the Birding Festival. Rainier talks about, settings and composition and a lot of those things at those type of programs. So I'm really not touching on that today, but I'm touching on my love of what we see when we're out there, what I see out in the drive, and really it's our flora, fauna, and then bringing it into our day-to-day photography. So the big thing here is, so show of hands, who likes to do photography when they're out birding or doing other items? So just about everybody. So why do we do it? So whether it be home, birding, travel, we're doing it to capture a moment. That special moment that you want to be able to remember, because I can tell you right now, I don't remember anything like 2 weeks later. Half the time, not even when I took it. You want to be able to document something. This is really important for us in the birding community. You want to be able to document something that you've seen. You also want, for me, it's getting out some of that artistic outlet, that creative outlet. You see people doing beautiful pictures and photography. I can't paint, so I take photos. That's my artistic outlet. But for all of us here, and so many of us, why do we do it? Be able to show everybody the birds you found. And that's really important when we're out there. And we laugh about it, but it's really true. Because, people want to say, well, I can't believe that you got XYZ bird. And we're like, look, I've got a picture of it right here, and I took it with my own camera. So, for us, as far as connecting in with Audubon and what we do for our hobby, to me, that was a very good one. Some of the photography journey that I've even had myself is, it's looking at why are we doing it, why is it important? And it's important for a number of things. And it's very interesting because you don't think of some of these things when you're actually going, well, why am I out taking a picture? It's learning. You're learning about your subjects. You're learning about how to use the camera, the technology, what goes into it. You're learning all of those things. And you don't realize you're doing it, but that's stimulating you. You're absorbing it. And let's face it, I'm not young anymore either, and you know, sometimes we just need that instead of sitting on our phone looking at Facebook. And I know I really value when I'm learning new items. That's partly why I really am enjoying birding, is because I'm learning something completely new. It's important for our travel because, you know, documenting what people are seeing around to, you know, you go on a trip, you come home and you know, you share pictures with people, and you're sharing this travel with people who may not ever have the opportunity to see that. Or they may never have seen a side of it that you've seen. Plus, again, it goes back to that memory. You're able to capture your memories. The sense of community. Photography is a massive, massive community of people. Whether it be, you know, a mom's group or a camera club, or something like the bird, you know, the birding, you know, groups. Photography has this community there, no matter what kind you do, and it gives you a way to actually bridge, you know, introductions. People can be very introverted if they don't know somebody, and you're in, you know, you're on a field trip and you're looking at things and you're like, okay, I feel kind of awkward here. Oh, what kind of camera are you using? Oh, what are you shooting with? What settings are you using today? It gives you that immediate sense of bridging that gap, allowing you to meet somebody and bring yourselves all into the same community. It's documenting history. When we were just talking about some of that today, I went out on a field trip early this morning. We were down at 3 Lakes, and one of the leaders was talking about the fact that they have photos from 1940s on what the property looked like down at 3 Lakes Management. And you know, you're talking about the history and then being able to look at those photos and track the restoration they've done, let's say on the prairies. It's history for our own history. It's history about everywhere that you've seen. Because we all know things change, you know, at the drop of a hat anymore. Science is huge. Photography is used in science all the time. You think about those pictures that they're beaming back from the space shuttles or from the telescopes, or the other direction you're looking at, you know, the microscopes. You're looking at, you know, endangered species that there might only be a few of, and they're able to document that, you know, for the purposes of science. And let's all face it, talk about it, it's art. How many have pictures of photography hanging on their walls? Yeah, I know I do. Whether it's something you've done yourself or something you've bought, we like art. We like filling up that space, we like having it out there. Photography is just another form of art for all of us. I saw this quote when I was writing up the presentation, that photography is important because it allows people to see the world from different perspectives. And thanks to photography, you can admire the most diverse scenarios and situations captured in a frozen moment. It is so powerful that it enables you to bring meaningful experience to others in a form of static images and allows the diffusion of information about things as they are. And the link, that in a nutshell really encapsulated why I think photography is important even in our day-to-day lives. Because it is very powerful. From, you think about all those images that you get that make you almost want to cry, to the ones that are just pure joy. And it's one of the most powerful means of communication that we have. So I've gotten this question so many times on field trips that have gone in the North Shore Birding Festival field trips. And I actually had somebody say to me on in the middle of one of the trips, and it happened to be a number of years ago, and there was a pair of mules coming up the sideline when you're over at Clay Island, it's over the bridge, and it was coming up one of the side roads. And this person, she's like, what are you taking a picture of? And it was really that like weird. And I'm like, of the mules, of the donkeys, you know? And they're like, you're not taking pictures of birds? And I'm like, what? You know? So, you know, what are you taking a picture of? For me, it's everything and anything. And I'm going to give you a caveat. I was going to go out to a lot of photographers and say, hey, send me pictures because I wanted to talk about what's, you know, right or wrong or your best ones and things to learn from. So the pictures are mine. It is not to pat me on the back or blow your own horn. I just didn't want to have to gather everybody's pictures in. So you're going to see great ones that I think are good. You're going to see other ones that are just like whatever I happen to have that talked about the image. I take pictures of everything. I take pictures of birds. I take pictures of grass. Bugs. Bugs are my favorite thing to take pictures of on the drive in the summer when there's nothing out there. Why? Because I practice on dragonflies, because they move, and it forces me to practice my focusing. Critters, like snakes, turtles, whatever they're. Because I just love doing the photography. I love capturing what I'm seeing out there in nature. So that's my question. What are you taking a picture of? Whatever happens to be out there that day. So the next question to ask yourself when you're really looking at how are you going to use it, where does it fit into your hobby, is why are you doing this? Well, you're doing it to sharpen your skills or learn new ones, especially to accompany, you know, your current repertoire with your birding. It's just another avenue or item to move in. It also forces you to increase your awareness of everything around you. So it was interesting today out on the trip because David Simpson was leading it, and he talked so much about the habitats around there, the importance to the birds, how the habitats function to different animals. Like this is good because it would appeal to the owls, and this is good here, it appeals to the songbirds because they're this way. Having your camera in front of you as well, instead of looking, you know, always for that bird or something around you, if you take pictures of everything, you're now looking and focusing at, well, what's there with the bird? What's there with the animal? What else is out there? And then you start looking at the bigger picture, but it is a mindset. It actually makes you look at different things and increase the awareness of your surroundings. And it documents it for you. So someone like me who's still, you know, very novice, especially with the small birds, being able to document the surroundings that I'm getting pictures of, or where I was, or what type of trees they're in, or, you know, what type of grass are they like, you know, where am I seeing them? We've talked about the caracaras today. And, you know, they're like, no, you look for this type of tree with this type of, you know, up about so many feet, and, you know, this is where they nest, or over here. And I'm like, okay, because to me, that's important. I took a picture of a pine tree with a hole in it to document what one of the nesting burrows on the red-cockaded woodpeckers looked like, so I knew what to look like later. I will never share that with anybody because it's a dark picture of a pine tree with a hole in it with a bunch of sap around it. But for me, it was important to document the surroundings that I was seeing with it. So nature photography and birding specifically is, I break down photography in truly what the uses are for it. The number one reason for me, and I see for so many other people, is you need a photo for documenting that you took that item. It doesn't, this is, you know, a cute cowbird. It's not anything I would, you know, it's a pretty picture. It's okay. He's covered with twigs. Anybody who goes to the Crazy View and tries to get the warblers in there flitting around, especially now the willows are in bloom, you'll never get a clear shot of those things. You've got twigs, you've got sticks. We all have those birds that will never come out of the branches. but you're getting a photo for documentation. I got a towhee today. I saw the head, I got the butt, and a whole bunch of branches in the middle. But it's my documentation that I saw it. So that's one reason. Important. The other is, you know, when you're documenting for it, you're not as concerned with the obstacles, composition, or background on those pictures. You're more concerned with the ID, and it's primarily used by most birder photographers on social media. So they don't have to be, you know, we always have this, is it good enough in focus for Facebook or Instagram, or is it good enough in focus to print? Because there's a fine line. You know, when you have to zoom into that 200% and it's a little bit blurry, probably not going to blow up really great if it's not, you know, relatively crisp. But if it looks good on a square this big, you're golden as it's coming out. So, you know, that's really, you know, photos for documentation, that's what they're used for. There's a perfect example. One of my really bad pictures, that was at the Birding Festival a couple years ago. And that's one of the, oh my God, I just forgot the name. That's one of the sharp-shinned hawks, I think, correct?
Short-tail.
Short-tail hawk, sorry, not the sharp-shinned. The short-tail hawks, and everybody was excited because they're so rare to see. This was the very best picture I could get out of them, because if you've ever been on those sunrise workshops out there, first of all, it's, you know, you're dealing with sun as it's coming up, it's backlit. You're shooting into a tree, how many feet above you with, you know, your cameras and lenses. I thought it was pretty good that I actually could see his eyes. But that was my documentation. I would never share that other than if somebody wanted to say, hey, you know, did you ever see it, you know, did you ever see the short-tailed hawk? It's like, yeah, I did. Look, I've got a really bad picture of it here. I like to think of, you will see people talk about environmental photos. I'm on Instagram, and we have an Instagram group that we post weekly. And one of the things it does is it has to be, you have to have a critter in it, like it's a wildlife picture. A lot of people post, you know, oh, that's a fantastic environmental shot. And it's because you're not focusing on the animal itself, but you're focusing on the subject and the environment that they're in. You know, and I like this one because while the hawk is the subject here, you're also seeing what some of the environment that he's in around it. So you're bringing in more greenery, you're bringing in other items. Think of those almost pseudo-landscape pictures. So the environmental is important, and it's a great way to look at photography when you're out there, is you're documenting the environment or the other surroundings of the birds or the other critters. So I love going out to a park in the morning, and you come out and you get that first open area of the water, and you've got gorgeous reeds, you've got pretty light, nice clouds, and you've got beautiful great egrets sitting there in the water, or some ducks. Getting that whole picture, I'm not a landscape photographer, but I love getting that picture of it. The egret is still there as the subject, but you're also documenting the whole surroundings with it. And they make for a pleasing picture. And it's also a good picture to share on social media. In these type of photos, you're actually concentrating more on the actual composition. So, you know, there's lots of rules of composition that you hear about it. Your rule of thirds. You know, are you centering it? Are you, where are you placing it? I tend to find people naturally compose their pictures to what's pleasing to them. But, you can certainly, learn more about composition and the do's and the don'ts with it, because there's lots of rules and you can break rules. But environmental focuses more on the composition than it necessarily does on the subject. Behavior and action shots are capturing that moment for the bird. And it makes it interesting, exciting. We all love the pictures of the osprey just before they hit the water, or, birds taking, like I've got the skimmers taking all off in flight, the osprey's flying with fish, some type of behavior, the ducks up when they start to, to stretch out and wing. We all like to get those pictures I have yet to get the pictures of the gallinos running across the water, which I'm still determined to get a really cute one of those, because I think they're the funniest things when they go skidding across the water, leaving all those trails behind them. But that would be a great action shot to me. They take an understanding of the bird's behavior. Rainier at the Bird Festival had said, he's like, okay, they're dunking the ducks. We were looking at fulvous ducks. And they're dunking their head in, they're dunking their head in, they're dunking their head in. And he's like, just wait, wait, have your cameras ready, wait, wait. He says, because they will then, after dunking, they will stand up and flap to dry some about before they settle down. And so he obviously understood the behavior, what those birds were going to do, so that he can anticipate. And having that understanding of that behavior is important for grabbing those action shots. It's like looking at the osprey, that they start to hover before they dive. So you see that, you're hovering, and then it's like, wait for it, and then, you know, go down. So learn the behavior of your subject if you're trying to get those action shots. Let's face it, it's in the right place at the right time. You know, there's nothing more than that. It's, you know, being there at the right hour. If you know your subject feeds in the morning or feeds in the evening, being there would be the time, you know, to be there, the right season. A lot of patience, because you may have to sit there and watch the ospreys for hours and hours to get them. I remember a couple years ago, Mark Hanen, who posts a lot on our you know, pages, does great bird and shot. He's like, no, I had a camp chair and I was parked right at the pond at the pump house to get the osprey shots. And he said, I think he was out there for a couple of hours. The other thing it really takes a lot of is just luck. You know, I am an overshooter. Thank God we have digital, because I think of that heron, I knew he had a fish, he was playing with it, he couldn't get it turned around to do it. I probably had 200 or 300 pictures of this. Some of them blurry, some of them not, some of them with his head in the ground. But by overshooting, I have it on you know, a medium burst. And by overshooting, you might just get that one that does it all. And I'm okay with that. Other people, they're not. A couple years ago, when we first saw the vermilions at Clay Island, people like to comment on what you're doing and how you're doing it. Why are you taking so many pictures of that bird? I'm taking pictures of that bird because it might do something cool. Isn't one shot sufficient? And it was a guy, you know, with a big camera and everything else. And obviously for him, one shot to get the bird was great. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have got a beautiful, slightly blurry, so I had to sharpen it, picture of one of the female vermilion just taking off from the branch she was on with her wings back up behind her. And it was just a lovely shot. So, you know, it's okay. I'm going to tell you right now, permission to overshoot, go for it. You just get rid of all the horrible ones first, and then look for the one that you really want, that tells you what you're doing. But it's luck, you know. Are they eating? Are they doing whatever? I put this in there because on the same Critter on Instagram group that we post in, we have periodically, about every quarter, we have the whoopsie posts. People love whoopsies. You know, it's looking funny. I mean, come on, we've all seen, you know, we've all seen our birds. You know, that poor owl, we caught him, it was right after a thunderstorm had just swept through down by Lake Wales. The owl was sitting up there looking so freaking forlorn. It was like he had lost his best friend. In fact, the mate was over on another tree, because I think they just said, you know, I'm out of here. I have never seen an egret in my life pout. But if I had to put an emotion on him, that egret was having a really bad day, and literally he sat in the water like that for probably 10 minutes. And it wasn't that hot or anything, maybe it was, but I just thought it was funny because he really looked like he was just pouting that day. And then crazy hair, who doesn't like, you know, birds just looking absolutely, you know, poor him, he's cute. But don't forget humor. Look at your mistakes that you normally would have thrown out. Laugh at your own work. We laughed today about everybody has the butt shots of birds, too many of them that count. We really do need to have a book on best butt best bird butt shots because they're probably 2/3 of what I get sometimes. Gnat catchers especially. Here's one of my favorite things, and Teresa, I know, Teresa has been so supportive and an advocate for me for the 2 years I did enter in the Chertok contest. And it was, the comments is that I have a very artistic side to what I do. And that's something for me. I mean, I love creating that emotive, artistic side. This was on the middle of the Anhinga there was one of our field trips at Clay Island a couple years ago. It was foggy, we couldn't see anything. So I switched to black and white, and the whole picture is actually the rest of that, you know, they scrubbed there with glistening dew on it and everything else. Made a great black and white picture, so I turned that into art. So why do we make art, or we like art? Because these are photos for you. These are photos for you, or if you're giving them to other people to share. You know, this is what, you know, people who are trying to sell their work, this is what they're trying to sell, is the art. It appeals to non-birders, and that to me is a huge key item because not everybody understands this obsession to go out and look at birds all day. But they do understand pretty things. And I try and have, like when I share pictures with my friends and work colleagues and everything else, I share the pretty ones, or the silly ones, because it appeals to them. So now you're drawing them into your circle and into, you know, come on into our hobby. Look, it's really pretty. We have really pretty birds. Have you ever seen a painted bunting? Let me show you. It does add another dimension to your hobby because now you're not just focusing on, yet again, here's another blue heron, because we've only seen 17 of them in the last 20 minutes. But now you're looking at that, if you think about, how do I make that blue heron look like art? You know, do I wait? Or, you know, I'm standing there, I'm watching it. He's preening. Oh, look, he's preening, he's pulling feathers out. He's got his head curved down. Look at the lines of that heron. Now it's turning into something that looks like art. So it does add another dimension, makes you think a little bit more. What else can I do with this scene? It allows for more creativity. Those days that you're like, I'm not finding anything, what am I doing? Well, you know, let's go make something pretty. It's like when you're bored handing the kids a pile of paper and finger paint. You know, that's the way I kind of look at it. The one thing I will say with this, break the rules. You know, this is the composition. This is the capturing things in a certain way. Go ahead and break the rules. Make, you know, artists don't get famous for having cookie cutter artwork. They break the rules. They make it their own. They put their stamp on it. And that's what art and this side of the photography for what we do is valuable. Art focuses on the composition. It evokes the emotion and it tells a story. You know, you're looking at that and it's very pretty vermilion, but you can feel a lot more into it. Like it's definitely meant to tell the story. Being out there, it's soft, it's pretty, it's just a nice, calming picture. It didn't talk about, you know, how many hours we were looking for them while we were out there. Art is the perfect venue for insects. So talk about bugs, spider webs, butterflies, flowers. Those are awesome. And with all of the things that you can do in Lightroom and add-ons even on your phone for editing, you can do so much with you know, art and insects and flowers and things. It's fun and it's the perfect venue for doing it, because really, no, honestly, nobody really wants to look at spiders generally unless you really like bugs. My friends do not. It's also the perfect venue for flowers. All of these were taken out at the drive, by the way. You know, the water lilies, I mean, you think about how many times you go through there and you see these beautiful white lotuses, and they're out there in the water, they're reflective. You got a perfect day. I take hundreds of bad ones, and I got this one with the water on it still from early morning or rain. and I can't remember what kind of flower that is. I'm sorry. It's one of the native flowers. I played with it because otherwise it just looked like another flower. I overexposed it. I softened it in. I took a brush. I blurred out more of it in the background. So now it's just, you could buy that at IKEA if it was in a big picture, and probably, I'm not selling to IKEA. I wish I could. Is it the frog spawn, the little stuff there? I think it is. We all know how big that is. That's here. I was bored one day. I was walking. I didn't see birds down at the very back of McLaughlin back there. So I'm like, oh look, there's flowers and they're really cute. So I got down and I took pictures of the frog spawn, and it made for a really interesting picture. So flowers are perfect for creating the art side. Don't forget black and white. There's the same butterfly, but in black and white. Oh, the details it pulls out. So if you have things that have interesting textures, interesting lines, flip them over in black and white. Play with still play with some of the contrast and exposure. See what you get out of it. Look at the gator. This one is small, but I love the gator picture because I love the structure and the texture to alligators. This one had all the swirls with the water and this S shape around it, and I just loved what that did. It looked like another alligator picture in color, but as soon as I put it into black and white, all of those swirls and textures came out. And it became much more appealing, and people were like, oh, that's really cool, because they aren't looking at the gator, they're looking at the picture itself. My final thoughts, kind of going into the other side of things. Things that are important. Know your camera. I'm still learning mine, but get to know your camera, how to use the settings, watch YouTube videos, understand what it's doing. Go out and read, take workshops, take classes, understand the basics of light, exposure, and composition. It will help. That's the exposure triangle between your ISO, your aperture, your shutter speed, the sharpness, your graininess. Don't try and learn everything at once. I made that mistake. Oh, look at these macros on insects. Oh, look at these beautiful macros on flowers. Oh, wait, they're doing landscape. Oh, I want to learn photography. You can't do it all. Pick one thing, learn it well, enjoy it, kind of pick something else up to add that to your repertoire, and keep going. Don't try and learn everything. Just pick one thing and learn. So, maybe learn your exposure and then move on to your composition. Let the camera do as much work for you as you can. We have this big conversation all the time. What do you shoot in? You shoot in shutter priority for SLRs, you shoot in aperture, you shoot in manual. I used aperture priority for a long time because I was concentrating on trying to capture my subject in focus. And so I would put auto ISO, set my aperture, set my shutter speed to a minimum of 1250 because on a 600mm lens, and let the camera do everything. I'm shooting in manual now because it is fine-tuning things a little bit. I mean, I go back and forth between both depending on when you need it. But let the camera do the work. Auto ISO is your friend because it will adjust for you, and you set the boundaries of how high you want it to go. So if you know your photos start to get grainy at 3200 ISO, then that's where you set it. Understand, this is to me the very most important thing, understand what you want out of your photography. And that's why I went to this particular side of it. Not everybody wants to care about the technical. Not everybody wants to care about, everything. They might be very happy out there. I am with my cell phone some days, and a lot of times my cell phone takes way better pictures of a surrounding and setup than my camera will, because I have to fuss with my camera too much or find another lens. But understand what you're really trying to get out of it. And I think once you do that, and you kind of think about some of the things I presented tonight, you'll actually get back and you'll know what your goals are for what you're doing with it, and how it's working with your hobby, your family, your other lifestyles. And hey, Al. Yeah, I know that guy. That was at our field trip, our sunrise field trip. Honestly, enjoy. I mean, photography should never be onerous, and I've let it get onerous multiple times. We all do. We're our biggest worst critics. But enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment of being out in nature. Enjoy the moment of being out looking for birds. Enjoy just the moment that you, and honestly, have fun. So that's it tonight. Any questions?